Is polyethylene glycol the reason why people are having an adverse reaction to the V word? Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, we engage live right here on Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. Go follow me there. That is where the fun begins. Usually we go Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time, but guys, you get a special Saturday edition today. This one was just way too important not to come on here live today on the weekend. So you know it's important if Jimmy is taking up his weekend when he usually chills. You know it's an important topic if I'm coming on live on Saturday. So thank you guys for being here. We're also simulcasting over on my Living Low Carb Man page. Thank you guys for being here. And on the Facebook page and on YouTube. So thank you all for being here today. Very, very important information. I hope you guys stick around for the whole program and then share this some more with all your peeps out there, because this is such critical information I'm going to share here today. So you can share. When I'm done, it will go up on IGTV. So go check it out there. We'll also have the episode up over on YouTube. Usually about an hour after I'm done, it finally uploads to YouTube and you can see it there. And then of course, always, you can see it at JimmyRants.com. Go check out the past episodes there as well. But guys, today I had to come on because we have some stuff going on with 9-1 DIVOC that I think you need to know about, and the associated V word. And if you're new to my kind of hidden code terminology, 9-1 DIVOC, do it backwards. What's that spell? Yeah, you get it. And then the V word, I think, is pretty obvious what I'm talking about. And I've got some really interesting information about these people who have had adverse reactions to the V word so far. And I'll get into the V word here in a minute. But first, breaking news. The World Health Organization now admits that the very test we are using for 9-1 DIVOC is not accurate. Now, we've been talking about this for a little while, but it's not accurate at all because of the amplification. We talked about this. It's 40 to 45 times amplified. So when they're testing with this, what's called a PCR test, and we'll get into that in a second, they're amplifying the results. And so therefore, it's giving you a false positive more times than not. And so the World Health Organization has finally come out and said, oops, yeah, that's not yes, it's the PCR test. They're admitting, they released a guidance memo just this week. December the 14th is when the memo came out from the World Health Organization, and it warns that the high cycle thresholds, remember that 35 to 45 times threshold on the PCR test, actually is resulting in many false positives. So all the so-called asymptomatic carriers, and you hear about like the football coaches and basketball players and people being tested and they come back positive. Well, it could be that it's a false positive because they never get sick. So this has been considered up until now the gold standard in testing for SARS-CoV-2. And it's based on what's called a polymerase chain reaction. So that's what PCR stands for. PCR works by taking nucleotides, the tiny fragments of the DNA or the RNA, and then replicates them until they're large enough to be seen. The replication is done in cycles. Each cycle doubles the amount of genetic material. So get this, if they do 40 times, they double, and then they double that double, and then they double that double. You can see how very quickly it can take a minuscule amount of just a trace and make it look like it's a bigger thing than it is. The number of cycles it takes to produce something identifiable is called the cycle threshold, or the CT value. And the higher the CT value is, the less likely you are of detecting anything of significance. In other words, they don't want you to amplify it so much that you make a mountain out of a molehill. They want you to amplify it just enough so you can see if there's a there. Unfortunately, anything over 35, which is kind of the threshold, they say don't go higher than 35, because at 35, you're starting to see something bigger than it really is. So in the new World Health Organization memo, it states that using a high CT value, which is the multiplication, to test for the presence of SARS-CoV-2 will result in a lot of false positives. Now, we've been talking about this for a little while. All these tests being used and the amplification, this CT value being so high, is giving a lot of people the impression that they have this virus, and they really don't. So to quote their own words, users of PCR reagents should read the IFU carefully to determine if manual adjustment of the PCR positivity threshold is necessary in order to account for any background noise, which may lead to a specimen with a high cycle threshold value resulting in being interpreted as a positive result. They go on to explain that the design and principle of the PCR test means that for patients with high levels of circulating virus, which is known as the viral load, relatively few cycles will be needed to detect that level of the virus. And so the CT value can be low for those people. Conversely, when the specimens return with a high CT value, it means that many cycles had to be required in order to detect it. In some circumstances, the distinction between just background noise and actual presence of the targeted virus is difficult to ascertain. So, which should beg the question, why keep recycling it, upwards of 35 to 45 on this? Why would you keep doing that if you get to a point where you're not really seeing it detectable enough? Are they doing it because they want the positive test for some reason? You have to think about that. And if you're just joining us, yes, it is Saturday. Don't adjust your calendar. It is Saturday. I am doing a special edition of Jimmy Rants today. I've got some breaking news I'm reading from the World Health Organization. They're finally admitting that the PCR test, which we have in order to determine people with 9-1 DIVOC, diagnosing them with that, they're saying it's bunk. It's inaccurate, has too many false positives, and should not be relied upon. And so that's huge news, but that's not the big news I'm going to talk about. I've got some stories here about an ingredient in the V word that's causing all these people to get sick. You've probably seen some of the viral videos. All right, so let's get back to this World Health Organization story. Of course, none of this is news to any of us paying attention. The PCR tests are easily manipulated, potentially highly inaccurate, and has been one of the oft-repeated battle cries for those of us who are against the pandemic narrative and the policies being used to sell it. So yeah, they keep talking about cases. Well, now that has kind of a hollow feel, right? We don't care about cases. We want to know, are people actually getting sick? And are people getting hospitalized? And unfortunately, some people, are they dying from it? So this is really fascinating, guys. And even the inventor of the PCR test has stated very clearly, this is never meant to be testing for 9-1 DIVOC. It just doesn't. It never was intended for that. And he even noted with the PCR test, you can actually make it find almost anything in the body. And on the cycle thresholds, he said if you have to go more than 40 cycles to amplify one single copy of a gene, there's something wrong with that test. And some of the guidelines for PCR say if the values are higher than 40, it's suspect because the implied low efficiency means it's probably going to be a false positive, anything that you find. And so all of this has been public knowledge. Even Dr. Anthony Fauci has admitted publicly that if you cycle the threshold over 35, it's going to be detecting dead nucleotides, not a living virus. And this is part of the problem. So in this article I'm reading from offguardian.org, they make a hypothesis as to why the World Health Organization has suddenly decided that the PCR test is bogus. Listen to this, guys. The answer to that is probably shocking. We have a V word now. So we don't really need to have high cases anymore, because if you have a V word and you start doing the real testing with the PCR test, not this amplified, cases go down, guess what they're going to do? They're going to credit. Cases are down. Oh my gosh, look, the V word is working. Everybody needs the V word. So it's crafty little manipulation. And I wonder how many people are going to catch this. And somebody said, I wonder if this is going to be all over the mainstream news. What do you think? What do you think? I don't think we're even going to hear anything about this on the mainstream news. Normally the system has produced its miracle, or notionally, the system has produced its miracle cure. So after everyone has been V-worded, all the PCR tests being done will now go down to the new World Health Organization guidelines. They're only going to do it 25 to 30 cycles instead of the 35 plus that they've been doing. And all the positive cases will start to plummet, and we'll have confirmation that the miracle V word is working. So that's an interesting take, that now the World Health Organization is admitting there's major flaws with accuracy when it comes to this PCR testing for 9-1 DIVOC. And it's going to be used to tout, oh, look how good our case numbers are now that we have a V word. So just wanted to put that on your radar screen. This was not even going to be a part of my Jimmy Rants until that just broke. That just kind of came across the wire. But guys, what I'm going to talk about next is so critical. So please, please, please share this with everyone you know, because this is so interesting information, especially in light of all of the reactions we're seeing of people who have had, some of the first people who have had this V word administered to them. And unfortunately, as people in the medical field, we saw the girl from Chattanooga, Tennessee, pass out on live television just like 15 minutes after getting the V word. And she got the Pfizer version of the V word. And just last night, the FDA granted emergency use authorization for the Moderna 9-1 DIVOC V word. And so they're now out there, and you've got to listen to this. Moderna is going to be far more widely distributed than the Pfizer one. Pfizer had to keep theirs at a temperature of negative 70 degrees Celsius. So it's very hard to transport that kind of a V word. Guess what Moderna's is? Moderna's is just a simple refrigeration or freezer. So they're going to be shipping out, and I'm about to give you the numbers they're going to be shipping out of this, but it's big. So the FDA formally authorized the second V word for emergency use, this one from Moderna. And by the way, I've done some research on Moderna. This is Moderna's first ever anything pharmaceutical. In other words, they've never made a V word before. They've never made a drug before. This will be the very first drug Moderna has ever made. Let that sink in. And I'll remind you what Moderna stands for. They created this company for the sole purpose of promoting and creating modified RNA V word. Okay? That's what Moderna stands for. Modified RNA Moderna. So keep that in mind. They've never, ever done any drug before. And then they did it faster than any other drug in human history. Is that not suspect? Like, let that sink in. Let you kind of absorb that a bit. I don't want the first time a company ever makes a drug to be something that may or may not be mandated on me in my profession or in my state that I live in. You need to be thinking about these things, because the Moderna one is going to get out there far greater than the Pfizer one. So the FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn said in a statement last night, with the availability now of 2 V words now for the prevention of 9-1 DIVOC, the FDA has taken another crucial step in the fight against this pandemic, causing vast numbers of blah, blah, blah. All right. So let's get on down, because it shows the number of doses that are going out. Here it goes. Moderna said it's going to deliver, get this guys, get ready. Moderna is going to deliver 20 million doses by the end of December, according to its federal supply contract. 20 million. That's over 10 times the amount of the first wave of doses that Pfizer sent out. Remember, Pfizer has a shipping issue because they have to keep it very cold, negative 70 degrees Celsius. Just regular refrigeration and freezing is how Moderna can ship theirs. And those are, they've got all kinds of equipment to ship that kind. So the attention turns to this distribution of the Moderna V word, and the Pfizer V word, as well as the Moderna, use this thing called mRNA, which we'll get into, and we've talked about a little bit, where it literally teaches the body cells how to make a protein, even just a piece of a protein that will trigger an immune response inside the body. That immune response produces antibodies, and that's what protects you from getting infected, even when the real virus enters our body. Although I did a Jimmy Rants on Monday talking all about how that process of it going into the cells in your body, that process actually can trigger autoimmunity. So if you missed my Jimmy Rants from Monday, go back and watch that episode later. But they're concerned about this because they're seeing that it's recognizing your own body tissue as an enemy, because this shift that they're doing with the body cells is literally mimicking stuff going on in the body. So the body's like, okay, who's the bad guy here? And it starts attacking itself. That's autoimmunity, and that's a concern as well. Unlike the Pfizer V word, Moderna's product does not need to be stored at the extremely low temperatures, making it a lot more accessible to get into communities. Balanced against that is the fact that the smaller biotech firm, talking about Moderna, in contrast with the pharmaceutical giant Pfizer, may face some steeper challenges meeting the demand. So that's the concerns they show in there. All right, of course, Dr. Fauci is hopeful that initial distribution will happen quickly, blah, 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 blah. From what I understand, they're already underway. This V word from Moderna is being shipped out this weekend. So guys, this is coming to a city near you. And I don't know about you, but from what I've seen of the people having an adverse reaction, it's not surprising. And that's to the Pfizer one. Wait until the Moderna one gets out there. We've had an obligate number of people who have gotten this so far, this V word from Pfizer. Wait until we have over 10 times more taking it from Moderna. And Moderna's a different formulation, same kind of V word, but a different formulation. Is there something in there that we need to be concerned about? Well, there is something that's in all of these V words, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. And if you just joined us, yes, we are on Saturday. It is Jimmy Rants on Saturday. You know it's important. If Jimmy's taking up his weekend where he likes to chill like a Bill, I usually do like to chill like a Bill, but today this was way, way, way too important not to get this out as soon as possible. And we're going to take a closer look at one of the ingredients that we think is suspect in the 9,1-DIVOC V word, and it's this thing called polyethylene glycol. So you may not know what that is, and we're going to get into the full details of what it is here in a minute. But first, I want to talk about an editorial that was written just this week in the December 15th, 2020 issue of the journal called Allergy. It's a group of allergists out of Spain and Switzerland and Germany. And the title of this editorial, Allergic Reactions to the First 9,1-DIVOC V word, a potential role of polyethylene glycol. And so the 9,1-DIVOC vaccine developed by Pfizer was approved for use in the UK on December 2nd. The approval was by the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency, MHRA. That's probably somewhat like our FDA here in America. So this group is therefore the first regulatory agency in the world to approve a V word to prevent 9,1-DIVOC, which is caused by severe acute respiratory blah, blah, blah. The vaccine is called BNT162b2. So that's the whole thing. They call it the Pfizer one. is a messenger ribonucleic acid, so that's the mRNA V word, produced as a highly purified single-stranded 5-capped mRNA. It's been generated through in vitro transcription in cell-free conditions from the corresponding DNA. This mRNA encodes the viral spike from SARS-CoV-2. The approval by this organization, MHRA, was based on the results of the phase 3 trial with 44,000 participants, showing that BNT162b2 was 95% effective 28 days after the administration of the first dose. Now, I've done some Jimmy Rants already explaining that 95% is based on a very small number, extremely small number of that total number of people that were in the study. So yes, there were 44,000 people in the study, but the actual people that they counted as the sample for determining this effectiveness, that 95% effectiveness, is like 160 people. So 160 of the 44,000. They didn't test all 44,000 and then 95% effective in all 44,000. That's not how it worked. And yet that's the way they're trying to make people believe this. On December the 8th, the V word BNT162b2 was administered to the population at risk for 9-1 DIVOC in the UK. On the second day of the V word, the National Health System informed that 2 workers of the NHS were having adverse allergic symptoms shortly after getting the V word, which prompted them to advise healthcare providers not to administrate the V word to subjects with a significant history of allergic reactions. Now, here's the thing. They already knew ahead of time that this polyethylene glycol could be a problem for people having an allergic reaction. Why don't they test for an allergic reaction before they administer this V word? Why isn't that a part of the protocol so that you can avoid the problems that people are having? According to the MHRA, the V word BNT162b2 for 9-1 DIVOC prevention contains the following. So listen to some of these ingredients. You won't know what they mean. I don't know what they mean. But these are the ingredients in that Pfizer V word. 4-hydroxybutyl azanoblis. I'm going to slaughter these names because it's a bunch of gobbledygook. Hexane 6,1-diol bisa 2-hexadilacanoate, polyethylene glycol, so that's what we're talking about here. Dilatratocyclotamide. I know those of you that are scientific are just laughing your head off at me reading this. Disteroyl sniglycero 3-phospholycholine. Cholesterol, potassium chloride, potassium dihydrogen phosphate, sodium chloride, disodium hydrogen phosphate dihydrate, sucrose. There's sugar in this V word, by the way. Good old sucrose right in there, table sugar. And then water. That's what's in this V word. From all these things officially declared one with the ability to cause an allergic reaction, and it's polyethylene glycol. So this is a hydrophilic polymer that is frequently used as an excipient in everyday products, things like medicines, cosmetics, and even in food, which we'll get into here in a minute. Although anaphylactic reactions to this have not been frequently reported in the last years, an increased number of allergic reactions to this have been described in individuals due to the administration of drugs and the use of certain products for personal hygiene. See, they already put this stuff in other things that you use, and now you're going to put it in your body at a higher load. It's going to have a reaction, and that's what's happening to these people that are getting a reaction after they take the V word for 9-1 DIVOC. Recently, the largest case of allergic reactions to this ingredient was described in individuals that developed anaphylactic reactions to medications that contain it. It was described as a high-risk hidden allergen in drug and food items. It can induce allergic reactions difficult to detect by healthcare providers and might be underdiagnosed. Cross-reactivity of this ingredient with polysorbat 80 due to the shared chemical moiety has been described as well. So here's their proposed solution, you guys. Skin prick testing and intradermal testing with different dilutions of this ingredient would be helpful in identifying suspected individuals. Since even severe anaphylactic reactions during skin testing has even been described, testing of suspected individuals should be carefully done following all the published algorithms in specialized allergy centers. Did you know you were going to need an allergist before you get the V word for 9-1 DIVOC? Please, please, please do your research on this, guys. I'm trying to give you good information here today so that if you or someone you love decides to do this, just make sure they're doing everything to protect themselves. Recently, specific IgE, which is the antibody to this ingredient, has been detected with the help of a dual cytometric bead assay. Such non-invasive methods would be helpful as additional diagnostic tools to screen for potential individuals who are at the highest risk. Since even non-antibody mediated hypersensitive reactions have been there. I'm trying to see if it has any other information here. Double-blind placebo-controlled challenges might be necessary. So they're saying we need to do more testing, and this has been my concern all along. They have thrust this V word on the population. We've got to get it out there. This is such a pandemic. We can't get back to normal until we get everything out there, and the V word is the beginning of the end of it. And so what they didn't account for is this kind of thing. And this is a known reaction. They're acting as if, oh, we had no idea this ingredient we put in every single one of these V words was going to cause this problem. And now they're calling for more research. No, that's what the phase 2 and phase 3 research was supposed to be about. They weren't supposed to just do this willy-nilly, put it out there and say, well, good luck, people. Good luck, American people. Get this shot in your arm, and I hope you survive. I hope you don't have anything bad happen. And oh yeah, by the way, you can't sue the pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer, Moderna, all of these companies are going to be completely free from you being able to sue them. And as I noted on Jimmy Rants yesterday, you won't have any compensation whatsoever from anybody. You're on your own. So if you get injured by this V word because of the known problems that I'm identifying today, just one of them, you're SOL. For patients who test positive for the reaction, avoidance of this ingredient as well as any analogs is strictly recommended. Although the trigger of this allergic reaction that was suffered by these two in the UK after it has yet to be determined, the potential role of this ingredient as a high-risk hidden trigger of dangerous allergic reaction should be carefully considered. So guys, this is real. And so it got me curious, and I've got several articles here in a minute all about this polyethylene glycol. So you probably have never heard of this before, but they're starting to look into it even more. I've got this story here. FDA is investigating 5 people who have had serious allergic reactions after having the Pfizer V word this week. And so they have identified what the culprit could be, and they've identified it as polyethylene glycol. So again, this is something you think, okay, why did they put that in there? And I'm going to tell you in a minute, there's a reason that's in there. So they say that anyone with a history of anaphylaxis or severe allergic reactions to medicine or food that contain this should not be given the V word. To which I would say, how would you know that? Unless you had a reaction to this before in some other manner, how would you know you have that allergic reaction to it if you've never had it before and then this is your first time? And what if you are in a place of employment where they mandate you take this V word? How do you explain, well, I'm concerned about maybe this allergic reaction happening to me? And again, you can't have any kind of recourse against the companies if something happens to you. Most Americans with allergies should be safe to receive the V word according to the FDA. It's only people who have previously had a severe allergic reaction to a V word or ingredients in the V word that should avoid. But again, how would you know? How would you know? The symptoms in a middle-aged patient resolved after being administered allergy treatment, epinephrine. The Moderna V word should not be given to individuals with a known history of severe allergic reactions. The U.S. drug regulator is also requiring that the appropriate medical treatments for immediate allergic reactions must be available when the shot is administered in case of an anaphylactic reaction. So here's the thing, like a known history of severe allergic reaction to any of the components of the shot. I would dare say, who knows what's in this shot? They haven't really given a complete list. Now, I read off all the scientific names earlier that's in the Pfizer one. But how do people know what's in it? So how do you know if you are reacting to something in it? How would you know? And the point is, you wouldn't. All right, so I've got another one here. Most allergic reactions not enough to not have you take the 9,1-DIVOC V word. More observation may be all that's required, even amongst those who do have severe reactions. The criteria for contraindication to taking this V word are narrow. More observation or possibly delayed V word may be necessary in those with a history of severe allergic reactions, according to the CDC, who was on the call last night. The only individuals who should not receive, listen to this, this is who they think should not receive the 9,1-DIVOC V word, are those who have a history of severe allergic reaction, including anaphylaxis to any of the components in the V word. The CDC staff highlighted polyethylene glycol, which again we're going to get into here in a second, which is often used. It's often used in laxatives. Oh, isn't that lovely? So you have anaphylactic shock and you crap your pants. Isn't that lovely? Those with a history of severe allergic reaction to another V word or any kind of injectable therapy may receive the V word but have precautions. Given recent publicity surrounding anaphylactic reactions to the Pfizer V word, CDC staff discussed an algorithm for triaging these patients. A risk assessment and potential deferral of V word applies only to those with a history of severe V word related allergies or just severe allergies to other injectables. So they say the following groups should proceed with the V word. Lay aside your fears if you have a history of food, pet, insect, venom, environmental, latex, or other allergies, a history of allergy to oral medications, non-serious allergy to V words, family history of anaphylaxis, and a history of anaphylaxis not related to V words. In other words, they're like, please take our V word. We've got a lot of money to make, and if you don't take our V word, we can't make our money. Yes, I'm quite cynical. CDC clinical guidance recommends a 30-minute observation period for those who have a history of allergic reactions due to any cause. And they say you have to wait a 15-minute period for those with an allergic reaction but not anaphylaxis. I don't remember ever as a kid, and I remember getting those little circle shots on your arm in school. I don't remember ever having a waiting period after you get it to make sure nothing bad happens to you. But that's what they're doing with this one. All right, so let's get into this specific ingredient because I think this is fascinating information that if you're not already aware of it, you need to be. So again, if you joined us late, polyethylene glycol. This is the ingredient that is causing some of the problems in the people who have taken the 9,1-DIVOC V word. So far, we've only had the Pfizer one out there. Moderna just got emergency use authorization last night. The FDA approved that, and it's now distributing 20 million doses of this. Now, keep in mind, this is just the first dose. The Pfizer one, you get the first dose, and then there's 21 days, and then you get the second dose. So there's 2 shots. The Moderna one, you get the first dose, and then you wait 28 days, and then there's the second shot. And with most of the reactions they got in the very limited clinical trials they did, most of the reactions was after the second shot. So whatever reaction we're having now, this is going to be nothing compared to what we could see sometime in the month of January when people start getting their second shot. All right, so let's look closer at polyethylene glycol. And this is straight from Wikipedia. Polyethylene glycol, PEG, is a polyether compound, many applications from industrial manufacturing to medicines. And it is used in a number of laxatives. So if you've ever taken a laxative, you probably have consumed PEG. Whole bowel irrigation with polyethylene glycol and other electrolytes. So some electrolyte supplements also include this. It's the bowel preparation when you get a colonoscopy. You ever had that serum? Yeah, they put this stuff in there. Helps to flush you out. It's also used as an excipient in many pharmaceutical products like this V word that we're talking about. When attached to various protein medications, which is what the V word is, polyethylene glycol allows a slowed clearance of the protein from the blood so that it can do what it needs to do to get in there. The possibility that PEG could be used to fuse axons is being explored by researchers for peripheral nerve and spinal cord injury. It's also being used in periodontitis, gum disease. And it's also, they note in here, again, this is the Wikipedia page, that both Moderna and Pfizer use this as a lipid. It's encased in a bubble of oily molecules called lipids, and they use different lipids in both V words. They're coated with a stabilizing molecule of polyethylene glycol, and there's now concern it triggers allergic reactions in people. So even Wikipedia is already on the ball on that one. So this polyethylene glycol is in skin creams. It's in personal lubricants. It's also in a number of toothpaste as a dispersant. It helps xanthan gum uniformly distribute throughout the toothpaste. It's also under investigation for use in body armor and in tattoos in order to monitor diabetes. It's used in design jet printers as an ink solvent, and it's also an anti-foaming agent in food and drink. It's used also in ballistic missile rocket fuel, coal burning, I saw somewhere it also is in antifreeze. So it's a common ingredient. It's not like this is just something they pulled up and created just for the V word. It has a lot of uses. But with all those uses, it also has some health effects. And that's what I want to kind of zero in on now, because the health effects is what we're seeing happen to these people having the allergic reaction to taking the V word. So listen to some of the health effects. And according to the FDA, it's biologically inert and safe. However, a growing body of evidence shows the existence of a detectable level of anti-PEG antibodies in about 72% of the population. That's nearly 3/4 of the people. Never been treated with these kind of drugs before. Based on plasma samples from 1990 to 1999, the FDA has been asked to investigate the possible effects of these in laxatives, specifically for children. A growing number of parents have reported serious or life-threatening side effects after they've been given one of these laxatives that contain this ingredient. Miralax has never been tested on children for that reason, and it's not recommended for people under the age of 18. Due to its ubiquity in so many products and the large percentage of the population who have antibodies to this ingredient, hypersensitive reactions to PEG are an increasing concern. Now, if 3/4 of the population has some kind of a sensitivity to polyethylene glycol, why exactly are they putting it into this V word that's going to be administered to tens of millions of Americans? Does that make sense? Doesn't to me. Allergy to PEG is usually discovered after a person has been diagnosed. with an allergy to an increasing number of seemingly unrelated products. If you eat processed foods, cosmetics, take drugs and other substances that contain it. When PEG is chemically attached to therapeutic molecules such as protein drugs or nanoparticles, which is what they've done with this V word, it can be antigenic, a molecule which stimulates an immune response. So that's what they're trying to do with this V word. Stimulating, though, at the same time, an anti-PEG antibody in some people. So while it's hopefully making you immune to 9-1 DIVOC, it could be having some kind of an anti to that ingredient. So now you're going to have ill effects from this polyethylene glycol. And if it's in all these other products, you use skin products, or if you're around this product or ingest it in some way, because it's in a lot of food stuff as well, what happens when you have that? Are you going to blame it on the V word? You can't, because there's nobody to blame it on. There's nobody to go and say, hey, look, I took the V word, being the good American and the good person that I am, to protect everybody, and so we could get past this pandemic and get back to normal. And what did it do? It made you sensitive to all these things that now have this PEG in it. Anybody concerned with this? Like this has to be on your radar screen to be seriously concerned about. This effect has only been shown for a few of the many therapeutics, but it has significant effects on the clinical outcomes of those infected patients. Other than these few instances where patients have an immune response, it's generally considered safe, blah, blah, blah. All right, so let's take a much closer look at polyethylene glycol 3350. So it's a laxative solution, increases the amount of water in the intestinal tract to stimulate bowel movements. Now, I can't imagine that's the reason it's in this V word, but that is one of the effects. It treats constipation, irregular bowel movements, and if you take too much of it, you can actually be in serious trouble. Yes, it has a huge laxative effect. You should not use this medicine if you're allergic to polyethylene glycol, or if you have a bowel obstruction, if you have an intestinal blockage. If any of these are present in you, you could have a dangerous or life-threatening side effect from having this. People with eating disorders, things like anorexia or bulimia, should not use this medication without talking to your doctor first. To make sure this is safe for you, tell your doctor if you have nausea, vomiting, severe stomach pain, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome, kidney disease, or a sudden change in bowel habits that have lasted for over 2 weeks. Also, pregnancy. It's not known whether polyethylene glycol will harm your unborn baby. If you're pregnant, tell your doctor. Or if you're planning to become pregnant, tell your doctor, because it could have contraindications. It is not known whether this polyethylene glycol passes into breast milk or if it could harm your baby. Tell your doctor if you are breastfeeding. All right, so here are some of the effects that could happen. And we've already heard this, you guys, from some of the people who have had the negative impact. We've already heard some of these side effects, but these are known side effects from polyethylene glycol. We already know about these things. This is not a surprise. So when it starts showing up in people who are taking the V word, it should not be a surprise. Severe or bloody diarrhea, known side effect. Rectal bleeding, blood in your stool, severe or worsening stomach pain. Common side effects include bloating, gas, upset stomach, dizziness, which is what happened to that lady in Chattanooga, Tennessee on live television. Increased sweating. There are many more side effects out there as well. This was something that was really interesting when I came across it. Other drugs may interact with this polyethylene glycol 3350. So if you take any drug, other drugs can interact with this, but not just drugs. I know a lot of you guys don't take drugs, but listen, you do take what I'm about to say, including prescription and over-the-counter medicines, vitamins, and herbal supplements. So if you take any of those things, any of those things, it could have a contraindication with this polyethylene glycol. Are you concerned yet? So I have one last little article that from WebMD that talks about the common side effects. We've already talked about a few of them. So if you consume polyethylene glycol, some of the common side effects include a feeling of general discomfort, sleeping problems, abdominal bloating, dehydration, excessive thirst, intense abdominal pain, irritation of the rectum, damn near killed them, nausea, sorry, I've always wanted to do that joke, stomach cramps, upper abdominal pain, and vomiting. Those are all the common side effects of this particular ingredient. There are other infrequent side effects, acidosis, increased sodium levels in the blood, higher calcium, higher uric acid, higher potassium, hives, or the inverse, low calcium, low magnesium, low phosphate, low potassium, and low sodium. And that could all result in headache, indigestion, and runny nose. There are some rare side effects. I don't really want to get into those, but it's just little things: arrhythmia, atrial fibrillation, fainting, fast heartbeat, fluid retention, high blood pressure, lip swelling, seizures, da-da-da-da-da. You guys get the picture. This polyethylene glycol, they've known about the stuff I've talked about here today for a little while. And apparently this stuff is meant to try to get the active ingredients in the V word to where it needs to get into your cells to do what it's supposed to do. That's it. That's its purpose. So you might be thinking, well, if they took it out, could it still work? And the answer is no. Like, this is like a key ingredient in the transport process. And so I don't know that they're going to pull it out of the formulation. But if enough people start to have adverse reactions, and like I said, if you missed the beginning, Moderna just got approved and they're shipping out 20 million doses this week. It's going out over the weekend and it's going to be in a store near you. And after they get past all that kind of first line of people with the frontline workers and the nursing home people and things like that, it's coming to us next. And when we see it in the tens of millions of people taking this thing, what's going to happen when you replicate that many people taking it and we're going to see these kind of reactions? Guys, this is not a surprise. And I wanted to get this out to you just as soon as possible. Thank you for indulging me on a Saturday. So many of you guys watching today, thank you for being here. But I just had to let you know about this because it's not a small problem. And I think if we don't speak up and speak out and share this information, I don't know how long social media is going to allow this information to be out there. I doubt you're going to hear very much about this in the mainstream media, but who knows? I've lost all hope in the mainstream media, which is why alternative media sources are always helpful. But I want to see what you guys have to say. We're going to go here first to the Jimmy Rants Instagram page, then over to the Living Low Carb Man Instagram page, Facebook next, finally YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website as always. Go check us out and join us. We normally go Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And so this is a rare Saturday show. Kat says, my friend says tests are junk. She's a doctor, works in ICU with 9-1 DIVOC patients. These patients can get one positive and one negative in the exact same day. Yeah, that is the problem with the testing. Kat also says bad ingredients everywhere. It's all about the dosage. They try to say it's too little to cause problem, but cumulative effects still exist. Not everybody will react, but some vulnerable will. And that's the thing. If it's ubiquitous in all of these products, like, can you imagine if you wear a lot of skin cream and it's got this ingredient in there and then they inject you with this V word that has polyethylene glycol in any amount, and now you're getting just enough to trigger that reaction? See, they're not taking that into account. Why aren't they asking these people? So do you take Miralax? Do you take skin creams? And kind of testing people's ability to handle it? I don't know. Everybody's so happy to take the V word. They're not getting into the nitty-gritty of where there could be a contraindication. Side effects vary by the method of the administration. Oral is one thing. Detoxification happens more efficiently if it's injected, which is what the V word is. Different story, much harder detox pathway. Thank you for your medical knowledge there, Kat. Prague Queen, polyethylene glycol is the ingredient in antifreeze that can kill you. I just watched an episode on Forensic Files about that. Yeah, in enough dosage, you're right. Has a laxative effect. It does, that girl from Brooklyn, and it's scary. Cavaliers of My Heart says, what the hell? Yeah, it's big news, right? Cavalier says, sadly, our U.S. soldiers will be human test dummies that have no choice but to take this. They can't refuse it. Plus, our healthcare workers, they have a choice right now, but that might change. And it might change amongst the general population. Like, I know the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, has already talked about every person that lives in the state of New York will be mandated to take this. I won't be surprised if Gavin Newsom in California does that. Whitmer in Michigan. There's some really rogue governors who are going to be very aggressive about making sure their whole state gets the V word. And there's going to be a fight on the hands if that happens, I'm sure. Cheap companies use that to keep dog treats chewy cheap. Sweet tasting. Dogs will lick antifreeze and die. It poisons humans. Yeah. Always look at the ingredients. I would never feed this to my dogs, let alone myself. Yeah. My parents are 79 and 82 and insist on taking this V word. I'm scared for them. Well, all you can do is give them the information, and they're grown people. Like, at this point, if they choose that they'd like to do this, I would think if you're 79 and 82, you've lived your life. Take your chances, I guess, at this point, unless you have some kind of serious concern. But I would think there's more opportunity for them to survive getting this thing in the wild and letting their own body handle it than to get this suspect V word with so many concerns that was rushed out to the market the first time they've ever done a modified RNA V word. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're just playing God with this V word, if you ask me. Big time. Kat says, with age, I started getting allergic reactions to all kinds of things, very mild and manageable without medications, but still, aging puts you at a higher risk for these allergies, cumulative effect through life. Yeah, that stuff stays in your fat cells, a lot of those toxins and things in your body. Women have put it in drinks to kill their husbands. Whoa. I ain't touching that one. Thank you, Cavaliers, and thank you, Instagram. We're going to now pop over to my other Instagram page. That was the Jimmy Rants Instagram. Now we're going to Living Low Carb Man. It's a little bit unorthodox to do two Instagrams at the same time, but I wanted all my peeps to be able to see this information that we have. Yes, new terms of service go into effect tomorrow, which is why I wanted to get this out here today. Somebody said terms of service change? Yeah. Guys, big changes are coming to Instagram starting tomorrow, and Facebook starting tomorrow, Sunday. Get ready. December 20th. Joshua, there has never been exposure on this level around any group of pharmaceutical products. I hope this will hurt these companies. Well, the problem is it might hurt these companies, but will the damage be done at that point? Like, that's the concern, which is why I'm doing this Jimmy Rants, trying to get the word out. So they are using nano-size polyethylene glycol instead of aluminum or mercury. Maybe. I don't know about the aluminum or mercury in this particular V word, but I think the mRNA requires this polyethylene glycol to do what it has to do in order to create the immune response, right? Thank you for sharing. I'm going to watch again. Thank you, Trix. Definitely, I tried to give enough information here, and I've got a few medical people on, and Keto Doc is on here as well. Thank you guys for being here and adding your contributions. Polyethylene glycol given orally for years for GI studies with very little reaction. Given IM with this V word, some concern, but Benadryl prior to the V word administration may be appropriate. Well, if that's true, should they do it prophylactically? Go ahead and give Benadryl to everybody before they give them this to kind of counteract any potential allergic reaction? I would think Benadryl would be benign if you have no reaction, but at least it would catch these reactions ahead of time. That's interesting information. Thank you, Keto Doc. We had a heating system that would run glycol through lines to thaw frost out of the ground for a construction product. Yeah, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds of the various components of this polyethylene glycol, because there's another thing that's really similarly named, but it's extremely dangerous. And so stick with polyethylene glycol. I would, with Benadryl, no adjuvant of mercury in these mRNA vaccines. Yeah, you probably don't need the mercury or the aluminum in these because of this polyethylene glycol with the mRNA. I think they work in conjunction, in symbiosis, to work together. Callie says, what are the changes regarding polyethylene glycol? Every warning about this, steered clear of it for years, toxic. Wow, it's counting me down on living low carb, man. That's so funny. So if I lose you guys, I've got 2 minutes left. Everybody else is still going strong, but it's counting me down here. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you being here. Share this information. Get it out there to as many people as possible. We need to let people know what's in this V word, because I don't think they even realize what's in it. So thank you for watching Jimmy Rants. I'm going to probably go ahead and sign off now since I'm done reading all of your comments. But thank you for being here, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye. All right, so we're going to end that one. I'm going to continue with you guys. I don't know why that one counted down, but here on Jimmy Rants Instagram page, I'm still going. So weird. All right, Facebook, you're on deck. Let's see what you guys have to say about this one. Pfizer is manufacturing in the area where I live, so I'm positive that's the only one that will be available to us, says Vicky. Well, I mean, if they're local, that's probably smart that they are the one, but they're all basically going to be similar in formulation. Emily says it's the main ingredient in Miralax that they use for colonoscopies. Yep, sure is. All right, thank you, Facebook. Now let's pop over here now to my YouTube channel. What's up, YouTube? You guys are always fun with your comments. Let's see what you have to say about this one. Isn't that the ingredient in antifreeze? It sure is. Didn't know you were going to be here today. Yeah, I'm here today because this is a very important topic, Anne, so I appreciate you watching. Bunny says, comedy hour with Jimmy. Yes. No comment. I'm just going to be quiet about that. I wonder what their stance is for people who have autoimmune issues. Well, I talked all about that one on Monday's Jimmy Rants. Last time I had a V word, I was in high school 26 years ago. Just like the nurse, I immediately fainted. Wow. I don't take V words. I've never done one for the seasonal flu. Oh, and one thing they said is if you've had the flu V word, the one for just the seasonal flu, you should not take this one for 9-1 DIVOC because there could be a reaction between the ingredients in it. So thought that was really interesting. 22 scientists send in a retraction paper for the PCR test, not yet accepted. The publisher of the original paper, 10 errors found. Interesting. PJB, my concern is I love to travel. I foresee many countries going to require proof of V word in order to enter the country. Do we just give up international travel? I'm already resigning myself to that, PJB. I love my friends in Australia, and I'm already like hearing from them, hey, when are you coming back? And I'm like, well, depending on what they're going to require for this V word, I may never be back. So that will be sad if that happens and we're not able to go travel around the world anymore. But I don't think they're going to force our hands in this. We may have to take measures into our own hands. So I hope that doesn't happen, but I have a feeling that, yeah, they're going to require a 9-1 DIVOC passport in order to get into the country. I know Ireland has already talked very publicly about it, as has Australia and other countries. So it's not looking good. Not looking good. Thank you, YouTube. Let me come back over here to the Jimmy Rants Instagram. I have intentionally removed PEG from my life. Yeah, I think a lot of people have. A lot of people have no idea, though, what polyethylene glycol is. So it's in a lot of things. Just be aware of that. My biggest issue is that we know common reactions of ingesting all of these things, but then we go and do it anyway. Well, if you choose to do it, that's one thing. But if you are forced to do it because you're told you have to take this V word because you're not a good person if you don't, that's the problem. That's where we run into issues. Is healthy folk will have to group together, or us healthy folk will have to group together and get private flights. Yeah, if you, and I wonder if there will be a business opportunity out of that, Joshua, where some company says, yeah, we don't care if you have 9-1 DIVOC V word or not. We will fly you to where you need to go. Now, the only problem is when you go to another country, that country may have a standard where they require you to have the V word. So I don't know how that's going to work, but you're right. You're right. All right, guys, I hope you are more informed now. We did a closer look today at this ingredient, polyethylene glycol, in the 9-1 DIVOC V word. Definitely in the Pfizer one. Definitely in the Moderna one. And I assume it's going to be in all of the ones that are coming out. AstraZeneca, Johnson & Johnson. There's different companies that are coming out with their version of this. And guys, as we get more and more people taking this and more people having a reaction, next time you see some video of someone who has a reaction to the V word, just think polyethylene glycol. They're having, and it's upwards of 3/4 of the population known allergy to this, because it's so ubiquitous in skin creams and laxatives and all these things that people take so much, and then they inject you with a bunch of it in their V word. This is not a surprise. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, you can engage live in the content. Come follow me right here. I'm on at Jimmy Rants over on Instagram. We usually go Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Today, I decided to do a special edition because this was just too much good, important information I wanted to get out as soon as possible. And especially since Instagram is changing their terms of service tomorrow, this may not have made it under the new terms of service. So got it in the last day before they changed their terms of service. So thank you for being here today. We also simulcast on my Facebook as well as over on my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay on IGTV right here at Jimmy Rants on Instagram. You can also watch the replay over on YouTube. Type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Finally, you can find it as well on the official website, the non-censored. You can always watch all the episodes no matter what happens in this crazy world of the internet and social media censorship over at JimmyRants.com. That's the official website. Please go check out any past episodes there. And guys, that's it for now. Until Monday. Who knows what's going to happen Monday? Because I come back Monday and suddenly Instagram's supposed to be looking at me through my camera, analyzing the background, making sure I'm wearing a mask if I'm around other people. Yeah, it's going to get weird. It's going to get weird. But get ready. Who knows what's going to happen? And it's so funny they did it Christmas week. Really? Really, Instagram? You worried about us? Is this the Christmas present that keeps on giving that we never asked for? God help us all. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Bye.